Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to continue with my AI thoughts here. This is going to be the subject of another white paper, and it's vector memory. Now, I don't know how much you know about how an AI, how its memory works, but basically it's got a grid with, I don't know, 3,000, 4,000 dimensions, and each of these memories are assigned a location in this matrix, and then it finds out what is close to the next one, and it uses this with a vector. It points to this one, and then it points to the other one over on the right, and then it uses some kind of cosine similarity to see that horse with hat and man with a hat is close, man and horse are far away, and this is how it organizes. It's not really memory, it's a location in its memory spot. So it doesn't really record the actual data, it just recalls a place where it's at. Now, when you got these big models, even I've got a small one running 13 billion, anytime you put a query in or ask something, it starts looking for the nearest similar thing, and it predicts where the next one will, and then it predicts the next one and the next one. So basically what it has to do is take your prompt, what's a horse, and it's got to push it through all 13 billion parameters. It takes quite a while because it's going to have everything that's related to a horse, things that are spelled horse, things that are the colors of the horse, everything to do with horses, and it's predicting where the next token will be. And so it's got to push this whole prompt and everything through this whole set of tokens. And what I've come up with is feeding the data. I don't have that big a vocabulary. Let's say that normally speaking I have, say 1,000 words. It might be more, it might be less, but generally speaking I use about 1,000 words, and maybe 300 or 400 specialized words that are about AI or about quantum memory or GitHub or things like this that are special to AI. So what I've been thinking about doing is taking and making a vector memory of only the terms that I use. I don't care what somebody's speaking in Chinese is saying. I don't care what they're doing over in Africa digging a ditch. I've got just a faucet I turn on. So a lot of this data that it's trained on is from all over the planet. But I don't really care what they're doing in India. For example, I'm using it to tune motors with or something like this. So I have welding, and I have hot rods and rat rods and these various things, and Raspberry Pi, the tools that I'm using. And I don't care what the rest of the world says. I only care what I say. So what I'm thinking about doing is taking a small model. Now these are text-based models, so even a small model could tell you where the vector is, but say this vector is this way and that way, and that equals dog. But it'll have all kinds of other vectors that it's got to filter out giraffes. Well, I guess giraffe would be an animal, so it would be relatively close to a dog. but there is so much of this 13 billion parameters, it has nothing to do at all with what I've got to do or say or what project I'm trying to do. So what I'm going to do is use a small model that plots the vectors of the language that I use and the terminology I use and the way I solve problems. I don't care about social networking. I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care if they think it's good or it's bad. I have no interest in anybody else's opinion other than what I think. So I'm going to pull the vectors out for basically everything I think, and I'll store those in the database, and then I'll use another model that'll attach a word list to these vectors. So maybe I got a couple thousand words or something and the stored vector. So the first thing the big model will do was look in this database, and it'll skip everything that doesn't match with the way I talk, the way I'm thinking, the projects that I've got. I don't care if it's right, it's wrong, it's socially acceptable, it's not picking up any Cartoon Network, it's not giving you the history of sailing on the ocean, it's not doing any of that stuff. And so what I've done is trim the vectors down from potential, say, 13 billion to maybe a couple thousand, and then it's only going to give me replies that are close to that 2,000 or 3,000 or whatever, 10,000. I mean, that's a very small amount compared to a billion. So it's not have to dig through its quote unquote database. It only has to dig through the stuff that is close to what I'm saying. Now, I know some other guys, I found this out after I figured this out, but they're running these big models, and they do that, but they just dump it to the cloud and throw $1 million at it, and it works fine for them, I suppose. But I don't have $1 million. I've only got a desktop server, and I'm limited to 13 billion parameter model, not a trillion parameter. And so even now with a good Llama 13B, for example, our Mistral's even a little slower because it's using a quantized version of it. But I'm looking at 3 or 4 minutes here of waiting for it to push this idea text file all the way through all the parameters, and it should cut probably my the computing time of the computer, I would say probably less than 10%. And what this would mean in real time is my model will be 10 times as fast. So I'm limited by RAM and stuff on a standalone computer, and I'm not dependent on the cloud. I'm using a JSON database to put these things in, and the model can pull directly from there right off of the hard drive. And I've basically speeded a 13 billion parameter model up to 130 billion as far as the compute speed goes. So I'm going to write a white paper on this, and not that it hasn't been done before, but it hasn't been done on a standalone system that's portable. It's completely private. It's not going to the internet at all. It would be beautiful for security companies or anybody that doesn't want to put their data out there in the public domain. So that's basically the idea. I've semi-tested it. It works. It works great. I just don't know enough about vector-based memory yet to make it work real well. But if you like this, if you think you might be interested in it, or you would be interested in some of my ideas, leave me a comment. Let me know. I know probably most people will never make it to the end of my videos, but the more and more I put together, I'll have a very strong base with a lot of these really good ideas. And see, I can't just throw more money at it and get a bigger model or more data or anything like that. I'm limited. It's on a desktop, and that's as big as it's going to get. So I have to find creative solutions of doing this with writing logs and JSON files and things like this that'll store my data, recall the data, feed it back into the model, and have actually models do all the computing that's necessary and trim it down into a file that the next model can read very quickly. So anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you will. It'll help the channel, and it'll let me know what you think, and I would be very interested in what a lot of you smart guys can think, as I'm just an old dumb engineer doing the best I can. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.